Your eyes are not deceiving you. What you're looking at here is a COROS watch with an AMOLED display. It finally happened. What's up, friends? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Dave from Chase to Summit, and today we're going to be taking a deep dive on the new COROS Pace Pro. Yes, the Pace series is now Pro. Now, before we get all the way into it, a couple of things. First of all, the COROS Pace Pro is not replacing the Pace 3. So the COROS Pace 3 series that you know and love will stick around. You'll get that MIP display, the lower price point, sort of the entry-level option. The new Pace Pro is sort of the next generation of the Pace series, sort of the evolution of COROS as a platform, and honestly, it's kind of exciting. Even though the AMOLED display on this watch is going to be the main talking point about it, because that's sort of the standout feature and what a lot of people were asking for, there is a lot more to this watch. And COROS was sure to mention that during the pre-release media calls that I had with them, that this watch is sort of the fastest COROS watch ever made. It's built for speed, and it also has the benefit of that AMOLED display. With that intro out of the way, let's get to the point of this video and talk about pricing and options. The new COROS will come in 3 colors at launch. There's the black version, the blue version, and then this gray version I have here. And when it comes to the price on the COROS Pace Pro, it does come in at $349 here in the USA. That price will vary depending on where you live. And when it comes to included accessories, the new Pace Pro will ship with a silicone band, so a rubber band is sort of the standard option, and it looks like this. It's actually a really nice band. With that being said, they do offer a new nylon band or Velcro band, as you can see here, and that's the one I've been using. This will be an additional purchase on top of your watch. It's not included in the box, but I do really like these bands. And of course, when it comes to the bands, these are industry standard quick release bands. Let's dive a little bit deeper on the hardware. So this watch comes in at 46 millimeters in diameter, and it's about 14 millimeters thick. Now, in contrast, if I hold that up next to the COROS Pace 3 here, you can see it is significantly larger. And if you were curious, I've got a quick size comparison here on the table. All the way on the left, we've got the Apple Watch 46 millimeter version. Then we've got the Suunto Race S, the Polar Vantage M3. We've got the new COROS Pace Pro, the Pace 3, and the Garmin Forerunner 965. The interesting thing about this watch, though, is its weight. This watch comes in at just 32.5 grams with no band attached. If you do use the silicone band that's in the box, this will be 49 grams with the combination. And then if you opt for the nylon band with the case and the band, it's only 37 grams. When it comes to build quality on the COROS Pace Pro, this watch, as expected, is entirely made out of plastic. That's by design. They want this to be a super lightweight watch, and to do that, they use a high-strength polymer for the back of the case, along with the bezel as well, and for the dedicated back button here. As you can see, the back button here is elongated in pill shape, so it is really easy to feel even if you have gloves on. Now, the digital crown up on the top right here is made out of metal, and that is for a functional purpose because this watch does have ECG built in, kind of. We'll talk more of that in a minute. Jumping back to the front of the watch here, the glass on the front of the watch is a reinforced mineral glass, so that's going to be similar to something like a Gorilla Glass. One more thing to note about the COROS Pace Pro is that the glass is pretty much flush with the front of the watch, like it's not recessed in under the bezel. So this bezel is not protecting the glass. And of course, this being a sport watch, it is waterproof to 5 atmospheres, so you can use it for pool swimming or open water swimming without an issue. Hey, quick interruption. If you're enjoying this video so far and you're finding it useful, I would really appreciate it if you went down and gave me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel down below, because only like 10% of you are actually subscribed, so fix that. Go hit the button down below. Okay. Back to the video. Flipping these watches over, you're gonna notice a couple of things. So all the way on the left here, I've got the COROS VERTIX 2S, which is the most expensive COROS watch. Then we've got the older COROS Pace 3 in the middle here, and then all the way to the right is the new Pace Pro. Now, if you look at the optical heart rate sensors on all 3 of these watches, you'll notice that the new Pace Pro and the VERTIX 2S have the exact same optical heart rate sensors, and I'll talk more on accuracy later in this video. Another thing you might notice is that the charging port between all 3 of these watches looks very similar. However, they are very different. When you open up the box on your COROS Pace Pro, you will notice that you will receive this little thing in the box. What I'm holding here is the new COROS charging adapter. This is no longer a cable, it is simply a tiny little adapter. So on one side, you've got this plug that goes in the back of the watch. You simply plug it in like that and it clicks into place. You can also plug it in this way if you prefer that. And then on the other side of this adapter, you get a USB Type-C port. And the purpose of this little thing is essentially just to replace this charging cable entirely. And COROS made an argument during a media call that we had with them that pretty much everybody carries around a USB Type-C charging cable, whether that be for your laptop, your earbuds, or some other accessory, or your phone or something like that. And because of that, having a little adapter like this is actually more efficient and easier to pack for travel and things like that because you've already got a cable with you rather than adding another cable to your bag. And I actually tend to agree with this. The cool thing about this new charging adapter is that they include some accessories in the box. So this is included with the purchase of your watch. First of all, you've got this little rubber sleeve thing. So you take your charging thing, you stick it in here, and then you can attach this ring to it, and now you've got a keychain. So you can keep this with you at all times. But the good news is this watch has really good battery life, so you won't always need to keep this with you. One thing to note about this new charging adapter though is that it is only compatible with the new COROS Pace Pro and newer watches, I would assume. It does not work on older watches, so I can't plug this into the Pace 3, and vice versa, I can't use an old cable on the new Pace Pros. All right, with the charging out of the way, let's get to the main talking point of this watch, and that is the display. This watch features a 1.3-inch AMOLED touch-enabled display. And finally, it's here on a COROS watch. In the past, COROS has always relied on memory in pixel displays like what you'd find on the COROS Pace 3 here. And while it is, functional and works well in direct sunlight, as you can see in a dimmer environment or in my studio here, there is no comparison. The AMOLED display here is just much more bright and vibrant and easy to read. And I would argue it's easier to read in just about any condition, whether that be out in direct sunlight or in the dark or any situation. I prefer AMOLED. It's just easier on the eyes. And it does have 1500 nits of brightness, which is actually a little bit brighter than something like the Garmin Fenix 8 here. Another interesting fact about the COROS Pace Pro here is that this is the first COROS watch to have a brightness setting. So now you can set it from normal to medium to high. I've been leaving mine on normal because it's perfectly adequate. And another thing to note is that it does auto adjust depending on your environment. Even if you set it to normal, medium, or high, within those parameters, it will adjust a little bit. Whether if you're in direct sunlight, it will boost up the brightness. If you're in the dark, it will dim it down, and we'll do that to conserve battery life. Moving into the next topic, let's talk about the user interface and responsiveness of the new COROS Pace Pro. Largely, the user interface of this watch is pretty much the same as every other COROS watch. So as I scroll through the menu here, you can see I have generally all the same features that you find on the VERTIX 2S or the Apex 2 Pro or even the Pace 3. However, it just looks a lot different on this AMOLED display. Another exciting new feature on this watch is the new internal chipset and GPU and CPU and all that stuff under the hood is just much faster. When I scroll around the user interface here, you can see that there is basically no lag at all. It's super fluid and I don't find myself waiting for anything to load. With that being said, even though the user interface is very responsive, the scrolling on this watch is still kind of weird. Like if you've ever used a COROS watch before, little movements, as you can see, if I just move my finger a little bit, it's scrolling through like super fast, and the scrolling can be a little bit finicky. Using the digital crown is very precise and easy to use, so I find myself using that more than the touchscreen. Another thing to keep in mind is that this is pre-production software and that COROS is rolling out a firmware update to address this scrolling issue or make it better. The watch face on the COROS Pace Pro, just like every other COROS watch, can be fully customized from a huge selection of watch faces available in the app. But as you can see here, the one that's pre-installed is actually pretty cool, and it does utilize that AMOLED display and make it look really nice thanks to all of its colors. Now, if I scroll down, the first widget you'll find here is my daily activity widget. This will show my stairs climb, my step count, my active time for the week, my calories burned, and so on. If I scroll down again, I've got my running fitness level, and this is based on all of my previous activities. Scrolling down to the next widget here, we do have a 7-day training load, which is super useful. However, the training load implementation on COROS is a little bit annoying because, as you can see here, mine is blank, and that's because I'm filming this video on a Monday, and this resets every Monday. I don't get why they do that. I wish it was a 7-day rolling thing that just kept going and going, so you'd always have training load data, but for whatever reason, they base it week by week. Moving down to the next widget widget, we have the recovery advisor telling me that I'm 100% recovered. Next up, we've got the stress widget, and this was recently added via a firmware update in the last quarter. It's a really useful metric to let you know how stressed you are, how overtrained you might be. If you're coming down with an illness, you'll see your stress go through the roof. The HRV information on the COROS platform has gotten a lot better over time, and now you've even got this little gauge to let you know if your HRV is normal, if it's too low or elevated. Next up, we've got our sleep data here. This will give me my total duration of sleep and all of my sleep stages. And scrolling down, you've got my sleep averages for the past 7 days. Below sleep, we've got all of the standard widgets like altitude, the sunrise and sunset widget, a barometer widget, and the weather widget that shows you the weather for the day and upcoming forecasts, which is quite useful. And of course, just like any other COROS watch, you'll also get all of your phone notifications on the COROS Pace Pro as well. As you can see here, I have a reminder from my Oura Ring to charge my ring. Within the toolbox, you've also got mapping and navigation features. Here you can load up a route in navigation, you can save your location, or you can just jump into a map view and see what's going on with your map. And I'll dive a little bit deeper on mapping and navigation in a minute. When it comes to health and wellness data on the COROS Pace Pro, it also has one more trick up its sleeve, and that it does have ECG or electrocardiogram. However, it seems like COROS didn't go through the regulatory process to make this like a medical grade ECG sensor. Instead, they sort of buried this feature in something called wellness snapshot. So if I scroll around my toolbox here, you can see there's wellness check. If I click on wellness check, it's going to tell me to measure my heart rate and to touch the digital crown with my finger. And that way I can establish the ECG connection there. And as you can see, I'm getting an ECG reading, but they're not calling it ECG because it's just part of the wellness check feature. When it comes to activity profiles and customization, the COROS Pace Pro has everything you'd expect from a mid to high range COROS watch. You've got all the standard activity profiles for running, cycling, swimming, winter sports, water sports, that sort of thing. And if there's something in here missing, you can add a custom profile, including a custom activity icon to distinguish it in the app after the fact. Now let's talk about mapping and navigation on the new COROS Pace Pro, because this watch does feature full offline mapping and navigation, just like something like the COROS VERTIX 2 S here. As I mentioned, this watch does have 32 gigabytes of internal storage for both music and mapping, and you can download maps directly from your phone using the COROS app and sync them over to your watch. These maps are entirely free, and there's different themes like topo, hybrid, landscape, that sort of thing. And the maps do work really well on the COROS Pace Pro, thanks to the faster processing and that bright, vibrant AMOLED display. The maps on the Pace Pro are definitely the most usable maps on any COROS watch in existence right now because of that AMOLED display and the faster processing. You can zoom in and out and use your finger to pan around the map seamlessly with almost no loading or no lag. It is a really good experience. With that being said, keep in mind that the maps on the COROS Pace Pro are not routable like what you'd find on a Garmin watch, so you can't create routes on the fly. The COROS Pace Pro supports things like back to start to get back to the beginning of your activity. You can also save checkpoints, you can have waypoints and navigation using the app on your phone, and you can save and find recent locations that you've saved to the watch. When it comes to the maps on the COROS Pace Pro, they are really good. However, they do lack map labels, which means you're not going to see names for roads and trails and bodies of water or points of interest, things like that. Now, one thing to keep in mind though is that COROS did mention that they will be adding map labels sometime in 2025 in the very near future, but it's not here yet. We'll have to wait and see how that shakes out. Okay, next up in this video, we need to talk about battery life on the COROS Pace Pro, because the battery life on this watch is kind of bonkers for a watch with an AMOLED display. Of course, COROS sprinkled their battery life magic on this watch, and even with an AMOLED display, you can expect up to 20 days of use with the always-on display turned off. And if you do turn on the always-on display, you can expect about 6 days of use. And on top of that, in GPS mode with all systems turned on, you'll get 38 hours in a GPS activity. That is plenty time to run something like a 100-mile ultra marathon with an AMOLED display, which is pretty impressive. If you want even more accuracy, this watch is dual frequency or multi-band enabled, which is sort of like the gold standard for accuracy these days. And in that mode, you can expect 31 hours of use, which is still really impressive. With that being said, COROS does play a little game with the battery life, and that is with the optical heart rate sensor on the back of the watch. As you can see here, if you dive into the settings, by default, out of the box, this watch is set to sample your heart rate every 10 minutes. And that's how they're achieving that crazy long battery life. So using real-time heart rate recording when you're not in an activity will take a big hit in your battery life. And honestly, on the COROS platform, there's not a huge value to using real-time heart rate sensing. However, when you're in an activity, when you're out on a run or a bike ride, it will always default to that real-time setting, so you'll get the most accuracy. Let's talk about my real-life use case with this watch. So I've been using this watch for about a week, and in that 7 days, I've been going on a run every single day from 30 minutes to about an hour with the always-on display turned off in all default settings. I didn't really tweak anything, I just kind of took it out of the box and used it with default settings. And as of right now, this watch has 56% after 7 days of pretty heavy use with an AMOLED display, and I'm pretty happy with that. With battery life out of the way, let's talk about GPS modes and accuracy on the new COROS Pace Pro. Something I found interesting about the Pace Pro and its GPS settings is that if you dive into satellite systems in the settings here, you'll notice that there's only 2 options available. You have all systems on or dual frequency. So there's no GPS only mode, which was available in older COROS watches. COROS claims they left GPS only mode off this watch because the battery life in all systems mode was so good and you got better accuracy that they didn't see the value of having GPS only mode as well because it was marginal gains in terms of battery life. With that being said, when it comes to accuracy on the COROS Pace Pro, I've actually gotten pretty decent accuracy so far. Now, admittedly, on the runs I've done so far, I have not had a chance to put it in any challenging situations, whether that be a slot canyon, in the mountains, in the city with high skyscrapers or anything like that. I've been pretty much running around the suburbs here, but in my testing, it's stacking up pretty closely to something like the Garmin Fenix 8 here, which is a multi-band enabled watch. I did notice a little bit of GPS drift here and there, but nothing major. And honestly, if you weren't comparing these watches side by side, the GPS tracks from this watch would be perfectly adequate and I wouldn't complain about them. With GPS accuracy out of the way, let's talk about the optical heart rate sensor and the accuracy of this in my testing so far. So again, I've taken the watch on a bunch of different runs and I have been wearing an ECG sensor on my chest, which is super accurate and what I use as a baseline of comparison. And to my surprise, the COROS Pace Pro is actually performing really well in my testing so far. Again, there are some slight deviations here and there, but generally speaking, I'm pretty happy with the heart rate sensor accuracy on the COROS Pace Pro so far. Now keep in mind, again, not super challenging conditions, just running through the suburbs, some trails, some light trail running, things like that. And of course, if you do want improved heart rate accuracy with the COROS Pace Pro, it does support external sensors, so you can pair an ECG sensor directly to this watch and then run and get super accurate data along with power meters and things like that on your bike. That's all supported here as well. And that brings us to the final segment of this video where I want to talk final thoughts and conclusions on the new Pace Pro. This watch is actually pretty impressive and I've had a lot of fun testing it so far. The inclusion of the AMOLED display really makes a night and day difference, and the faster CPU and everything just makes this watch feel a lot more modern, along with crazy long battery life and decent accuracy. Now at $349 though, this watch does face a lot of competition, and most namely, what comes to mind is the Suunto Race S. Because as you can see, these watches both have an AMOLED display, and they're both bright and vibrant, but the Suunto Race S here does have superior build quality. The case is made out of metal, and in my GPS and heart rate performance testing, this watch performed exceptionally well. However, when it comes to the user interface and responsiveness, I will say that the Pace Pro does feel just a little bit quicker and snappier, and it's got a simpler user interface to scroll through. So it's really a toss-up as to which one you go with here. Both are really good, both have a great display, both have good battery life, and both get decent accuracy. Which one would you pick? Let me know in the comments down below. I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that at $349, this watch has a lot of competition, whether that be the new Polar Vantage M3, the Suunto Race S, the Apple Watch, the Garmin Forerunner 265. They're all kind of in that price range and they all have pros and cons. But I will say, I've really enjoyed the COROS Pace Pro so far. It kind of strikes a good balance of being a super simple watch. Like, there's not a whole bunch of bells and whistles here to go through. There's not a lot of fluff, and it just sort of gets the job done. It's something I've always said about COROS watches, is that they feel more like a tool for your training rather than like a smartwatch for playing with or fiddling with. And this feels the same way, but it just feels like a little bit of a step up. Now that I've talked about what I like with the COROS Pace Pro, what could be better? Well, there are a few things missing, and most specifically when it comes to that OLED display and smartwatch features. For example, a lot of competitors out there, like the Suunto Race S here, has a flashlight mode that allows you to use that AMOLED display as a flashlight. It makes it max brightness, turns the display white, and it is a functional tool to have in the dark. On the COROS Pace Pro, that feature is missing right now. Another thing I'd like to see added on the Pace Pro is some sort of bedtime mode or night shift mode to really dim down the brightness of the display in the dark so you're not blinding yourself in the middle of the night. I'd also like to see more smartwatch features on the COROS Pace Pro that are more competitive with everybody else out there. For example, something like an NFC payment system would be really cool. The ability to download streaming music from something like Spotify or Amazon Music, that would be great. Or even the ability to control your smartphone's music from your watch, because that's still not present here on the COROS Pace Pro, and that's basically a feature on every single smartwatch in existence, except for COROS for some reason. Then there's other features that you find on other watches, like the ability to sort of palm the display, to turn off the display. That's not here either on the Pace Pro. And finally, as mentioned before, just a better overall scrolling experience on this new display, because the display and the visuals are awesome, but scrolling on it is a little bit finicky right now, though COROS has mentioned that they are updating that soon. And then other things like routable maps or point of interest support, or even map rerouting, which is actually supported on other COROS devices, including their bike computer called the Dura, but it's still not here on watches yet. Hopefully, again, in a firmware update. Now, the good news is COROS is really good at firmware updates and adding features after the fact, so I am excited to see where this watch will go, but for now, it is still a really solid option if you are a COROS fan. All right, friends, that is the end of this video. If you are still watching this video, you probably liked it, and if you did like it, please consider going down and giving me a big old thumbs up and subscribing to my channel down below so you don't miss more videos from me in the future. After you're done giving me a thumbs up, also check out the links in the description down below where you can head over and buy a brand new COROS Pace Pro or any other watch I talked about in this video. And after you check out those links, also check out the links to my other social media accounts, my Strava, my Instagram, and my podcast and merch store where you can buy a sweet hat like that. And that's it. I've been talking for a while now. I'm gonna go. All right, bye.